And I just gave up because I thought, well, if he can't be bothered finishing the series, neither can I. Pull your shit together, George. I am an absolute fiend for starting a series and never finishing it. There are so many series that I have started on these shelves that I've read 1, maybe 2 books for, and then just neglected the other 572 that are in the series, and I just never finish it. And then I get to the point where I've left it so long that I've forgotten what's happened and I can't be bothered going back to reread. Hi, I'm Chloe, and I think I have a problem. So I thought it would be fun today to do an unfinished book series tag. I have 10 questions here that I'm going to go through just to reacquaint myself with all of my unfinished series and hopefully it will motivate me to actually complete them. So go grab your favourite drink and let's get into it. For the purpose of this video, anything that has more than one book is a series. That includes duologies because again, I am such a nightmare for not finishing off duologies. So I feel like I need to hold myself accountable for that as well. So the first question then is the one that got away. What is a series that you didn't finish even though you really enjoyed the first book? And for me, that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I really enjoyed this first book more than I thought I would. I read A River Enchanted by the same author and it was okay. It didn't grip me. I wasn't too bothered about reading the second book, which by the way I haven't done either. But I was kind of not really in the mood to anyway. But this one I enjoyed a lot more and did fully plan on reading Ruthless Vows. Then I never did. And now I'm kind of thinking to myself, have I left it a little bit too long? I'm not sure. I do still want to read it, but I also have got so many other books that I want to get to first that I just don't have the time. Question number 2 then is second book syndrome. What is a series that you stopped reading because the sequel didn't live up to the hype? For this one, I am going with Three Dark Crowns by Kendara Blake. This book itself didn't really live up to the hype for me. I wasn't too keen on it, but I did read the second book and I was very much willing to have my opinion changed. If book 2 was phenomenal, I was going to continue on with the series because the concept for it was so interesting and I really thought it had so much potential. But book 2 was a huge slog and nearly put me into a reading slump. So after that, I just decided this was not for me and it was a DNF. Question number 3, The Intimidating Giant. Is it a series that you haven't finished because it is so overwhelmingly long? I don't think I have a series that I've started that's really long, but anything in the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson, I am so intimidated to read because not only is the series long, but the books themselves are absolutely massive and I keep putting off reading it because it's just so overwhelming. Question number 4, waiting for the finale. Is there a series that you've put on hold because you're waiting for it to be completed? Oh, well, thank you for asking me because yes, there is. Need I say more? This one, Mr. Martin, where the heck's the last book? I can't finish this series until you do. And actually, I didn't even continue reading. I think I got to the 4th book maybe, and I just gave up because I thought, well, if he can't be bothered finishing the series, neither can I. So this one is left undone. And actually, for once, it's not my fault. I'm not taking any responsibility for it. Pull your shit together, George. Question number 5, The Forgotten Friend. What's a series that you started so long ago that you'd have to reread earlier books to continue it? Technically, this isn't strictly a continuation of a series, as in it's not the next book in it. It's a companion series, but it sort of is, if that makes sense. King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. So this is set in the world of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which is the first trilogy, and then there's the Six of Crows duology, which is kind of a spin-off, and then King of Scars and Rule of Wolves are a separate duology in its own right, but following the same characters. You don't technically have to read it as a series, but like this comes after all of those. And it's been so long since I have read the original trilogy and the Six of Crows duology that I would have to go back and like refresh everything before I could continue on with it. I think, well, sort of. It's a little bit of a cheat, but I'm counting it. This is my game, my rules. I do still really want to get to this just because I want to complete the Grishaverse so I can say that I've completed it. But I definitely need to refresh myself on the characters and the world before I do that. But again, it's just finding the time to do it. I don't have time. I have another book for this question as well, and it is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is one that I read, I think it was just before the second book came out, and I enjoyed it. It was okay. It wasn't like a favourite or a 5-star read or anything, which is probably why I never continued. But I just never bought the second one and therefore never finished the series. But I, again, really want to, especially now because I'm starting to get really into sci-fi again. And it's such a cool book where it's like the format of it is really interesting as well. It's like it's like a case file, and you're kind of watching the story unfold through like diary entries and log notes, and yeah, it's really interestingly formatted, so I do want to finish it. But again, it was so long ago that I have got no idea what happened in this book anymore, and I would need to go back and reread it. And I hardly ever reread books. In fact, I don't think I've ever reread a book that's not Harry Potter. Have I? No, I don't think I have. I don't think I've ever reread a book. So I just don't see it happening, which is a shame because it was actually a good book. And I've heard good things for the rest of the series, but it's just been too long. It's been too long. Send help. I'm spiraling. Question 6. I'll get to it eventually. Which unfinished series do you keep putting off but saying that you'll read? Aha, well, I have the perfect one. See Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi. This is a huge series. Everybody loves it. It's huge on Book Talk, and I want to read it at some point, eventually, in the future. Maybe, I think. I hope. It's just, it's one of those ones that every time I say I'm gonna read it, I don't. I find something else that I want to read instead. And I read this Woven Kingdom, also by Tahara Mafi, and I liked it. It was okay. It's a little bit corny, it's a little bit cheesy, but I did enjoy it. And so I do think I would enjoy Shatter Me, but there's just so many books in the series, and it just feels like such a huge commitment that I just keep putting it off and putting it off. And also I feel like there's so much hype around this book that I'm kind of scared that it's not going to live up to it. But I will get to it at some point. Maybe. Question 7. The cover curse. Have you ever abandoned a series because of a cover redesign? Yes and no. So I don't own the book anymore because I unhauled it, but The Diviners by Libba Bray was a cover change that really annoyed me. The first book in this series was absolutely gorgeous, and then for some reason every subsequent book after had a completely different design and it just really irritated me, so I never bought book 2, and because of that I never ended up reading it. But by the time I read book 1, I didn't really enjoy it anyway, so I don't know if I would have continued, but the fact that the covers were just so ugly and none of them matched really annoyed me. So I never bought them anyway. So I would say that the cover change or the cover redesign contributed to the fact that I never finished that series. I'm absolving myself of all blame. Basically, it was the illustrator's fault. It couldn't possibly have been mine. Question number 8. Out of sight, out of mind. Did you quit a series simply because you forgot about it? Yes. Yes, I have, now that you ask. Quite a few, actually. So I have very slowly, over the last few years, been making my way through all of the Shadowhunter books by Cassandra Clare. But I never continued on with I don't know what the little trilogy is called, but it's the Lady Midnight, Lord of something, those ones. I read the first book in that trilogy and then I just never continued it because I didn't read it, I listened to it on Audible, and because it's not in front of me, I never continued with it, and it's just something now that has been so long that I just don't think I want to. But that's purely just because I forgot all about it. Same with a lot of the other Shadowhunter books. They are books that I've had for so long, and I've read a lot of them, so they often get put to the back of my shelves, and I have newer ones in front of them where I can't see the Shadowhunter ones, so I just forget about them. I am determined to one day finish the Shadowhunter books. When that will be, I don't know, but for the time being, it's on hold, and I fear that the longer I leave it and the older I get, the less interested I am. But I do want to finish it at some point. Maybe. This is supposed to be motivate me to finish all of these series, but for every single one so far, I'm like, maybe I might get to it. Or I'll just do exactly what I have been doing for the last 10 years of my reading career and keep starting and never finishing new series instead. Question number 9, a change of heart. Is it a series that you loved at first but you lost interest in over time? Now, I'm cheating a little bit with this answer, so because I'm cheating, I've picked 2 books. So, the first one is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Lani Taylor. And the reason that this is a cheat is because I've actually finished this series, but I read this book when it was originally published, read the sequel again when that was originally published, so that's like years ago now, but I didn't read the final book, Dreams of Gods and Monsters, until this year, which is a long gap in between, and by the time I got to that 3rd book, I was just not interested in it. I was no longer invested in the story or the characters or really just anything that went on, and I found it such a drag and kind of boring. So it does answer that question, but it's also not an unfinished series, technically. So, to make up for that, I chose Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, which again is also not a series, but it's a continuation of another book. So, Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell features the main character who writes fan fiction, and the story is kind of alludes to being like a Harry Potter fan fiction, but the Harry Potter of that world. And Carry On is the fan fiction that she wrote, and so I bought this immediately after reading Fangirl, and this is another one that's been on my TBR for like, about 10 years, and I keep saying that I'm going to read it, but I just don't think I'm interested in it anymore. I loved Fangirl, but I also think that I'm now just past the age where I would have enjoyed this so much more if I had read it at the time, and I think it's been so long that I've lost all interest in it now, I'm gonna be honest. Okay, last question. Redemption Arc. Is it a series that you DNF'd but you want to give a second chance? Sort of. So for this, I went for Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I did not like this book at all. It put me in a reading slump for a good few months. I thought the characters were really annoying. The plot was a little bit silly, and it just didn't live up to any of the hype for me. However, I do, whether out of curiosity or just sheer stubbornness, I do now want to finish the series. I am on a little bit of a mission to get to a 0 TBR, maybe not by the end of this year, but certainly very soon. And to do that, I need to finish this series, and so I think I want to give it a second chance. However, I feel like if I read book 2 and that's just as bad as this one, I might just unhaul it. But how I feel just now is cautiously optimistic. Maybe. Now that I've said it, I'm not even convincing myself. But I am slowly starting to warm up to the idea of finishing this series. Now, it's been like probably more than 5 years, I think, since I read this. So I'm now slowly starting to come around to the idea that maybe I could give it another chance. Alright guys, that is the end of the unfinished book series tag. I would love to know your answers to the questions below, so if you do this tag, don't forget to tag me in it so I can watch it. Let me know in the comments below guys which series you are determined to finish. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more bookish content from me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.